When I was just 24 years old, I made my very first $100,000 online running Shopify print-on-demand stores. But to be completely honest with you, in my case, there was so much brutal trial and error and points where I came very close to quitting. That's why in this video, I want to share with you what some of those big mistakes were that I made, as well as the limiting beliefs or just misguided ideas that I didn't even know to question when I got started. Because these were the things that were way more impactful than any app or ad strategy that I could ever possibly share. And my main goal with making this video is to simply humanize the entire process of starting a business. We've all seen so many videos about crazy, revenue milestones and goals, and that's all great. But that was exactly what caused me to fall into the trap number one that I want to share with you, which is that hard work can beat out practicality. And when I first graduated from college, I was about as green as they come. I had no idea where to start a business, who to talk to, or even which courses were creditworthy or not. But one thing I had learned from watching Instagram Reels and YouTube videos was the turn your grind set into a mindset type approach of if you just work really hard and you want it really bad, and you stick with it long enough, that good things are going to happen. But that led to me making really foolhardy decisions, such as buying a $6,000 course right out of the gate when I didn't have a single dollar to my name. I actually had to split it across 2 different credit cards because my balance wasn't high enough on either one to be able to pay for the course. And I just remember being so excited when I got the email back from them saying, yes, they would take my money. I was thrilled because I just simply didn't know any better. And the point here is not that all courses are evil or not worth the investment, but the point of my life that I was at when I made that investment, one, I had not done enough research and I just thought that you have to spend money to make money. And 2, I was not in a financial position to really make that kind of investment, because what I found after I got inside the course, it was an Amazon FBA course, was that I had to, step 1, buy a whole bunch of inventory, which I now had no money for. So I was immediately out of the running for the course and was not able to get a refund. So that mistake alone set me back $6,000, as well as a pretty hefty blow to the old ego. But fortunately, I was still young and dumb enough to just continue with it. And it wasn't until many years later that I realized that if I could go back and do things all over again, it would have made all the sense in the world to first secure some kind of income through a job, which at the time I had just a tainted perception about getting a 9-to-5 and all of that, which was completely misguided. It's a completely valid strategy and would have been the smart thing for me to do to make sure that I had at least some free cash flow coming in that I would then be able to either A, reinvest into the business, or B, at the very least know that I had my bare living expenses covered. Because I thought that if I just worked hard enough and didn't sleep and just tried enough different things, that I would be able to scale my way out of the financial situation that I was in. And I really thought that just hard work overrode practicality. So step number 1 is to get your house in order first, because not only does that free you up to have money to invest into your business, but way more importantly, it relieves the stress, the thought in your mind of, I have to get this to work, otherwise ... That is just not a headspace that lends itself to us being productive or taking the kind of actions on the business that it needs in order to really grow. And big mistake number 2 that I fell into was thinking that I had to figure out how to do it all on my own. For whatever reason, I had it in my mind that the best entrepreneurs are the ones who are able to just figure things out on their own. And when you work hard enough and you're resourceful enough and smart enough, then it should be able to work out for you. And so the first 2 years of me running my own business, I was completely isolated. I went so far as I didn't even tell my friends or family that I had started a business. Part of that was being self-conscious because I didn't really know anybody else who was doing it. So I didn't really I wasn't even sure of what I was doing. So I certainly didn't need to hear the reinforced uncertainty from everyone around me. But I was so cut off that I couldn't even talk about it with a single other person, which led me to essentially be growing at the rate of one person. I had no network around me. I had no people that I could share strategies with or learn from, or better yet, be able to confide in about the struggles and the ups and downs. And this led to so many detrimental effects, such as 1, I was learning at extremely slow rate. I would make a mistake, it would cost money, and then I would try to pick myself up and continue on. And two, I didn't have anybody to talk to. So I was feeling mentally like my world was shrinking in and that there was fewer and fewer people that I could reach out to for help. And it wasn't until, fortunately, somebody that I actually knew from college reached out and said that they were getting together a house of entrepreneurs. And at first I was hesitant. I still had, the solo thing in my mind, but very fortunately for me, I agreed and moved into what turned into be the most transformative living arrangement or community of my entire life. So there was 12 of us entrepreneurs all living under the same roof, everybody operating Shopify brands together, sharing what was working, what wasn't. And more than that, we were able to support each other. And when we had big wins, everybody celebrated. And when somebody was down, everybody would rally to support them and throw resources their way to help solve their problem. And this all happened without hardly any planning. It all happened very naturally. And we all, almost unbeknownst to us, started learning at the rate of 12 opposed to just at the rate of 1. And I will go on record personally crediting so much of my success to having had the fortune to be a part of that kind of group, which is exactly why we started WeScale, which is the community that we've grown with members who are starting and growing their own print-on-demand brands. And our number one goal with WeScale is to take the best of the best experiences that we had, the best elements of living in that kind of tight-knit community, and to be able to bring that in a virtual environment that's accessible to anybody from anywhere in the world. And as a side note, it has been one of the most fulfilling projects my entire life, having the pleasure of getting to work with people in the community. It's really incredible what they've all built. And the culture of support that everyone has for one another is something that I've only had the pleasure of experiencing one other time in my life. But as great as that experience was living in that environment, one trap that we all fell into time and time again was thinking that when things get boring, it's a sign that something needs to change. An example of this was we had a Shopify brand that was doing extremely well. And there was a time where as the sales were climbing up, this was back in like 2021, and as the sales started to climb up, the things that had gotten us there was we had picked a really great niche. We had done research on who the customer was, and we had worked with the design team to create a really high quality catalog of designs that were clearly really resonating with the audience. And we were selling them all just through our Shopify store with email marketing and Facebook ads to drive the traffic. It was a very simple setup in the grand scheme of things. And as things were going well from these inputs that we just talked about, what did we do? Well, as we were adding more and more designs and checking the ads, launching new ads, sending emails day in and day out for weeks and months on end, I don't even know if we got months into it before it finally got boring. And when that boredom set in, at least for me, every other time previously in my life, being bored was a sign that, or at least a perceived sign that something should change. Like I should do something to entertain myself. Like, the classic conversation, like with the parents and kids, like if you're bored, go outside, do something. You're like, no, I don't want to do that. It was like that kind of thing, but in running our business. So what did we do? We shook things up. So we started testing TikTok ads, and we started testing like different marketplaces that we had never expanded into. We layered in really expensive softwares that were essentially promised the world, charge you an arm and a leg. And all of these things that we were adding on, while yes, they could have been like good ideas, the way that we executed on them was so poor, I would not wish it on my worst enemy. Because what we did was all of the things that got us to climb to that point almost stopped happening completely. At the very least, the amount of focus that we had on those things was almost non-existent. So sure, we still put some hours or time into lightly checking if we were making designs, but it was a fraction of the time and the focus and effort that we had put in previously. You'd be shocked the number of times that we had to all relearn this lesson. Like the number of times we had sharp inclines followed by sharp declines, because once you decline, then you realize like, okay, something's not working. Okay, then we go back and look at the time that things were going well. What were we doing? Okay, we were making designs. We researched the audience. We launched new ads and emails. Okay, got it. Go back to doing that. 2 to 3 months later, like clockwork, things would get boring again. Because a lot of times, and this is a great Hermosi quote, a lot of times the thing that the business needs is also the most boring thing. And that is so true, it's not even funny. Because there's nothing more boring, at least to me, than making 1,000th design and then moving on to design 1,001. But if the number one goal in my mind, which it was to grow the biggest and most profitable brand possible, then I shouldn't have been doing anything else. Because boredom is not a sign that something needs to change. It's oftentimes a sign that we're on the right track. That like what causes something to be interesting, or, the opposite of boredom. It's new, it's exciting, it's something that we haven't done before. So it's something that we are learning. Think of, anything that you become proficient in your life, maybe even something where you build up like muscle memory. You've done it so many times over and over and over again. You start to get pretty darn good at that thing. But at the same time, you're not intellectually stimulated the same way that you were when you first started out. And the really challenging part about this is, as entrepreneurs, we are heavily rewarded the first time that we context switch over to a new opportunity. Because the biggest leap is normally going from like a 9 to 5 to starting our business. But then we have to unlearn that lesson quickly, because once we switch over to a new opportunity, it is time to settle in for the long haul and optimize for the thing that we make sure that our actions back up the thing that we say that we are optimizing for. And if I'm being brutally honest with myself, the times that I was switching to shiny objects, I was not optimizing for the goal of building the biggest and best brand. I was optimizing for my own entertainment, which if that's my goal, go watch a TV show or something. Like get a hobby. Like don't make our business our like ADD outlet essentially. And that's exactly what we're doing time and time again. And as a result of lesson 3, we, by process of elimination, going the hardest path possible, learned one of the hardest lessons of all, which is lesson 4. And that is build a real brand, not just one-off stores. And the story behind this is, like I just mentioned, the times where we were skyrocketing and then plummeting, and then skyrocketing and then plummeting, because we would just simply take our eye off the ball. The thing that I didn't mention is we weren't just doing that on one brand. We had multiple. At our peak, my business partner and I, we had 4 different brands that were running in parallel. One of the biggest mistakes that I ever made, because what we were aiming for was that quick initial hit that you get essentially when you launch a new store, and then it just hits the market like wildfire and really resonates, and you see like a high ROAS right out of the gate. Like it's fun. But what we were doing was building one-off stores. We were not building real brands. And the thing that we were completely misguided about is that the real money, the real value in any business is in not just acquiring a one-time customer. It's in being able to build a relationship with a customer. And building a relationship comes when you transition from being just a storefront to being an actual brand. And it is very, very challenging to build not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 brands simultaneously. So we were split focus across 4 different things, which at that point, you're pretty much only have enough time to like keep the lights on. Opposed to if we shrunk that down and put all of that effort into one thing and went really deep, that would have allowed us to build real brands. Part of the issue here was that we were also switching between different business models. So we would do drop shipping stores, which had inconsistent lead times. You're selling the same generic products as everybody else. Then we had 3PL products or brands where we were sourcing the inventory and customizing the products, working with manufacturers overseas, which that had long lead times and just insane amount of capital, at least insane to us at the time, insane amount of capital required to run it. And so on those brands, we were always like very stop and start. But fortunately, out of those brands, one of them was print on demand. And that print on demand brand really changed our perspective about what it can feel like when you hone your focus, you simplify the supply chain, and you really go deep on just providing an excellent customer experience. And one of the partners that has made this possible, and also the sponsor of today's video, is Printify. Now, I've said this many times before, but I don't do hardly any sponsorships on this channel. The only ones that I will ever consider are the brands that I personally use, not just in the past on 8 different brands, but on the brands that we are actively running today. And so there is Gelato, there's Printful, and then there's Printify. And so we have worked with every different print provider under the sun. And so I can confidently give my highest recommendation to Printify and the main thing that's really interesting to me about Printify's setup compared to many of the competitors is that they are not just a one-stop shop where everything is done through them. What's part of their biggest advantage, in my opinion, is that they are a marketplace of printers that are basically competing for our business. What a unique spot to be in, where we are not just beholden to one price that's set for us. We are able to see what the market is able to present. And then we're able to see the quality scores, the shipping rates, and then their prices. And the prices that we're able to get on Printify, I have not been able to find any other place online that is able to compete with them. So if you're interested, you can get started with Printify by clicking the link down below. And if you use discount code WeScale, you get a free month of Printify Premium. And the fifth and final lesson that I got to learn the fun way is that mindset work is ongoing. So I used to believe that, the best entrepreneurs in the world, like the Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, all of them, I had a picture in my mind that they were these like deities that had just figured it out, and they must wake up every single day and just feel incredible. Like they are omnipotent. They can, make whatever happen that they want, and it's pretty effortless for them. It wasn't until I started really reading the biographies and autobiographies and watching interviews with these founders that I realized that it was actually the exact opposite. These people struggled just as much, if not way more, than many of us do in our day-to-day. Not just in terms of the business struggles they were having, but also with their personal and like internal struggles. And much to their credit, they're very open about this, and a lot of the materials you're able to read on them. But the thing that I found most fascinating, the commonality between all of them, was not that they just had some golden mindset, like set it and forget it, and they're just good for the rest of their life. Rather, they had an operating system or a plan, so to speak, for when things didn't go their way. That if, they were feeling down about something, or they had something super stressful happen in the business, they were judging themselves off of their ability to handle that and bounce back, rather than their ability to just ward it off from even happening in the first place. And that very subtle shift really gave me permission that as I was running my brands, that I shouldn't, just because I encounter a problem or a challenge, doesn't mean that I am like ineffective as an entrepreneur, or I have no future in this, or anything else. It's actually the exact opposite. It, like the number of problems that we have, the faster we grow, actually increases, not decreases. And I used to think there was some magical entrepreneurship land that once you achieve there, you go through the pearly gates and then just everything's good. And you have a team, and, you have processes in place, and just everything is bliss, and you're just like on a beach. Now I realize that's not true. Like it depends on like the type of business you're trying to build. Like, yes, you definitely can hire a team that takes over a lot of the day-to-day for you. But if our goal is to aggressively scale, like my goal has always been, then that means that we're going to be unlocking new and bigger and better challenges along the way. And so I was kind of shooting myself in the foot by believing that I shouldn't be facing problems, and that by having them, it meant that I was doing something wrong. So next time you face a big challenge or a daunting task, whatever it may be that comes your way in the business, take it from me that is not a sign that you are doing anything wrong. In fact, it's normally the exact opposite, because problems means competitive advantage. And what is business besides creating value? Where does value come from? Solving problems. So every time you solve a problem, reframe it as this is you getting one step closer to your goal, and judge yourself off of your ability to solve those problems, and tap your resources and join a network or a community to be able to get support. And that increases your leverage and like your ability to solve bigger and better problems down the road. So if you're feeling stuck right now in any area of your business, one, I completely get it. And two, appreciate you watching this. Hopefully some of these missteps that I had, or limiting beliefs, maybe one or two of them resonate with you, and it'll make your journey that much easier. Just remember to stay focused, one opportunity, build something of real value. When it gets boring, that means it's time to go hard, increase your network. You don't have to do this alone. And all of this is a process. I won't say the journey is the destination, but it kind of is.